Last week I gave my impression on the short and to the point campaign in saying that size matters only when you pay for it and when dildos for the YouTube article fuck himself. Now I can get into everything else after the campaign is over. And I wanted to do this exactly a week after launch. You know, get to play as much content as possible, get to at least the second weekly reset. And instead of making people wait all the way to the end of the video for my conclusion, let's just get this shit out the way. Unless you bought the season pass and would already get this content as part of that, the Warmind DLC is not worth the money. If you were to have to spend $20 to buy this, in no way, shape, or form would you be happy with your purchase. So, save your money. Warmind makes minor improvements to the game, but it also fucks up other things along the way, and it is not enough to bring people back to the game that are still curious about it. For those of you who have the season pass and you've already paid for it, it's not that great, but it has some minor improvements that Destiny has been missing for months now, so if you've already paid for it, hey, you might want to come back and play it just a little bit. Now, as for the content, let's start with the positives. The biggest step in the right direction are all the secrets and collectibles. Of the many things that Destiny 2 stripped away from Destiny 1 to make it such a vanilla game, the collectibles and secret items were some of the lamest removals. Yes, the game gave us golden chests and lost sectors, but they were marked on your fucking map. Warmind gives us 45 collectibles that you need to shoot, and it leads us to an exotic sword and exotic sparrow. Sleeper Simulant also returned with a relatively involved quest. There are still some other secrets left unsolved in the DLC, plus Bungie actually had a real-world item that people could have gone to grab. They actually left a version of the Valkyrie in the forest that someone found and was actually able to take home with them. So these are cool things that they have done. It sort of reminds you of the Taken King when they had all of these cool items such as the Touch of Malice quest and things like that. And it gives people a reason to explore and follow guides when it comes to the Warmind DLC. This map has a fucking sparrow. Oh, thank motherfucker, man. Granted, Hellas Basin in the Warmind DLC is much smaller than the Mars area we got in Destiny 1, which, let's be honest here for a second, that was the most painfully underused area in the entire Destiny 1 game. I mean, considering its size, we did almost nothing there. But here, in the Warmind DLC, we got 2 landing zones, a few campaign off-the-beaten-trail areas to explore, and we could use our fucking sparrows. You know, it's not like Mercury's giant donut bullshit where we had no goddamn sparrow. Mars returned the Warsat public event, which makes sense since this is obviously a Rasputin-themed DLC, so that was pretty decent of them to bring back in a new version. One thing that was also added to the game, which is technically not part of the DLC, is the exotic weapon Masterwork Catalyst. Masterwork exotics were going to be added to the game anyway, and initially it was supposed to be rolled out a while ago, but Bungie delayed it until it worked better. It finally made its way to the game to coincide with this DLC, but this is technically not part of the DLC. You don't need the DLC to have the exotic Masterworks, but most people will assume it's part of the DLC. It's not, but for the sake of this video, I'll lump them together. Anyways, it's another small improvement to the overall game. Some exotic weapons have the ability to turn into a Masterwork weapon, and then you randomly get a catalyst that allows you to increase the ability of the gun. You will need to then use that weapon, and this is actually a smart way of implementing this. When you include the exotic gun buff that we got, some of these weapons are actually pretty decent to use now, like the Tractor Cannon or the fucking Darcy. My god, that does a lot of damage. Or the PlayStation exclusive Sniper, the Borealis. Having a reason to use them and see their potential is a smart way of getting players to actually run these guns again. I like it. I see it as a step in the right direction to make us use different weapons again. But again, let's be honest here. This doesn't fully fix the game. It just takes another small step in the right direction. Crucible is always going to be some shit that I can't stand. I never lie about that shit. I play it, I rank it up, I get my Shaxx engram each week, but otherwise, I avoid the fucking thing like a baby daddy avoiding a paternity test. Having ranks of how well you play or how often you play seems like something so fucking basic that it should have been added to the game since day one. But you know what? Here we are now. We have these Crucible ranks for the quick play playlist, and then you have it for the competitive playlist as well. The addition of the Redrix Claymore, that really cool gun that's in the competitive PvP section, that's also a nice carrot on the stick for players who are actually going to grind for that gun, but I will never bother with that shit. You couldn't pay me enough money to play in the competitive playlist. Oh man, both of those modes I can't stand. let alone having to do it in the fucking Crucible, which I don't even like to begin with. If that gun was in Mayhem, fuck yeah, I would grind that shit out. But competitive, get the fuck out of here, man. The players who enjoy PvP will certainly have that goal to reach, and that's good for those players. But it's really shitty for those who can't stand Destiny's Crucible. But guess what? There are going to be weapons, there are going to be items that not everybody's going to get in the game. That happens to be one that I will never get. Heroic Strikes got modifiers to add a bit of difficulty and variety to them. Each week we get a burn damage, and each day we get a new advantage or disadvantage in the strikes. Some days, it's worth playing. Other days, we get that one-hit melee death bullshit from an enemy. Oh god, that was a fucking nightmare, man. Some of the modifiers are hit or miss, don't get me wrong, but there are issues with the strikes that I have to get into in the negative section in a minute. Escalation Protocol is this game's version of the Court of Oryx meets the Archon Forge. It's a player-elected public event that has a number of objectives to beat 7 waves of fucking bullet sponge enemies. Oh, motherfucker, can they give any of those goddamn enemies more health? I like that the event was added, but again, I have to get into the negative parts of the DLC to explain the problems with this. Then there's also the new raid layer, which I haven't beat yet as of this video. The light level was just far too high for me to reach reasonably in week number 1. So, I've seen the videos. It looks like Axis from Wrath of the Machine fight meets the Callus mechanics from the original Leviathan raid meets Vostok also from the Wrath of the Machines. I'll be beating that motherfucker by the end of this week though. But that leads me into the biggest problem with the Warmind. Progression. Or ranking up if you want to consider it that. Before the DLC released, Bungie said that they wanted to make ranking up much slower and far more difficult. They wanted to take away our easy path to max light or maximum power. And they really wanted to make us grind out those final levels. Now on paper, this is not a bad idea. Getting to the highest power level was fairly easy since Rise of Iron. While it's not terrible to power up that quickly, it certainly does keep people coming back to the game if you make it a bit slower. But the slow rank up issues though affect the 3 main PvE areas that most people will want to spend their time in. Strikes, Escalation Protocol, and the raid layer. And each one of these items is affected differently by this slower than fuck rank up system. And this progression by regression is what's going to frustrate players, and I will guarantee 100% Bungie will change this shit before the next DLC in September. Guaranteed. They are not going to keep this system the way it is because it is too fucking regressive. Let me start with the easy one. Heroic Strikes. First of all, before I get into the progression portion of this, you just have to mention, why do they keep making these PlayStation exclusive strikes? And on top of that, they make it one strike that wasn't part of the storyline. The 2 strikes that Xbox players and PC players got were basically the story mission. You got the one with Noctis and the one with Zol. The one exclusive is the only mission that they did not see during the campaign storyline. We get this fucking monster Psion that we have to face on Nessus or whatever the hell it is, and it's cool that I get to play it on PlayStation, but it sucks for everyone else. It is really a stupid fucking deal that they still have with Sony, and to be honest, at this point, they just need to drop that shit. We know Sony already has the higher install base. I don't know why they keep these stupid deals going, but in any event, nothing we can solve at this point. There are other issues with the Heroic Strikes. The main thing is, the game has this very soft cap of 345 power when you're ranking up, and you need to break through that ceiling, which you can do very easily, don't get me wrong. All it takes is a milestone or 2 here or there, run multiple characters, moving guns from one character to the next character, and you can steadily rank up way past 345 without an issue. Heroic Strikes are recommended at 350 power, and would seem most likely the area that players will want to venture into once you hit that 345 cap, right? I mean, are you going to continue to keep exploring bullshit after you do your Flashpoint, after you do your Crucible, and if you're still under 350, what the fuck else is left to do? You could do the 270 Nightfall, you could try to run your raid and whatnot, but essentially, the place that you want to go to experience some of the new content is going to be the Heroic Strike playlist. It seems like the best option for players, especially when you consider one of the quest steps for the Sleeper Simulant is requiring us to do 5 Heroic Strikes. At 345, or even anything below 350, the strikes are a chore, man. I mean, even to 359, these shits could be a pain in the ass. The damage that you take is ridiculous, and that also depends on what negative modifier they have in that particular day. You know, when they had the 1 melee death modifier, oh my god, you couldn't even fucking move in a direction without something shitting on you and you died. The half health one, oh, that was pretty fucked up too. But aside from it being a little bit more of a chore, aside from it taking a little longer, the biggest issue with this are the rewards. For people who took on the heroic strikes at 345 to even say 349, and you were rewarded with what? 345 gear? When you finally make it to 350, you're still getting 345 gear. There is honestly no logic to this bullshit. If you're going to have an event that says we need to recommend a 350 power level, but you only get a 340 reward, what the fuck is the point of that? Why would anyone bother running those strikes knowing there is such a little chance of getting something? Plus, the strikes are still a challenge at 345. I don't mind a challenge. But at the same time, it's not like these strikes aren't the same fucking things we've been running for the past 8 goddamn months. All of a sudden, the arms dealer is challenging? Now you want Lake of Shadows to be difficult? And never mind fucking Exodus down. That goddamn boss has to be the most annoying motherfucker in the game. But the rewards are crap. Come on, Bungie. This honestly makes no sense at all. Slowing down our rank up progress shouldn't mean stopping it in the events that are currently above the cap. Now, I'm well into the high 360s already. The strikes are certainly easier. They're still a chore to do. But essentially, the rewards still suck from these. I'm not asking to be maximum light. I'm just asking, if I'm 348, drop me a 348 reward. If I turn 351, drop me a 351 reward. That's all we're asking. We're not asking for 370, 385 rewards. We're just asking, if I hit 356, give me something that drops at 356. I'm not going to go way past it on just one piece of gear, but I am going to get something that seems logically relevant to the power level that I am at the current moment. Escalation Protocol runs into a similar issue. You start the event at 370 power, and then I believe it goes all the way up to 400 level bosses. I like that. But the problem is, once again, the large power gap delta people have to cross to make this reachable. And of course, the rewards are also shit rewards. Bungie touted Escalation Protocol as a very difficult event, which is fine by me. But why would you put the content so far out of reach for people to even attempt it? I mean, the fucking thing is even called Escalation Protocol. So why isn't the power delta escalating as you go along? It's 7 waves, right? So why isn't wave 1 350 power? Then say wave 2 is 360, wave 3 is 370, 380, all the way up to 400. You get the fucking point, right? You can have a bullet sponge motherfucker at 350. You can have a challenging mechanic at 360, or multiple bosses that you need to kill. But instead, you make this difficult by artificially raising a power level to the point that most people are not going to reach within week number 1. So we're paying for content. We have this content as advertised as a key piece of this DLC, a new addition to the game that players are going to enjoy, but you're really not going to be able to attempt it until the 2nd week. For some people, the 3rd week, maybe even the 4th week. You don't see how fucked up that is? But you know what's the really biggest kick in the dick when it comes to this event? It's the inability to get multiple people in an instance to take this challenge on. If you go into the area with a party of 3, and you need at least 3 people to take this event on, then rely on randoms, you need to hope that you find other people in the area that can at least take on the challenge with you. If you're lucky, you maybe even find another party that's also there trying to take on this challenge. And generally, you have to rely on other competent people. This is the issue. It is rare to get more than 6 people in an instance on the Mars planet maps. I rarely, if ever, see more than 6 people in a certain area. Certainly haven't seen fucking 9 people in an area, because that wouldn't help with Escalation Protocol. You're lucky to get 5 people in an area. And honestly, that's probably not enough. It doesn't matter your strategy, whether you do the tethers, you use the Valkyrie to clear out enemies, you tractor cannon to debuff with thousands of void rockets and void supers. The highest levels of Escalation Protocol are going to need relatively 7 to 9 people at this point. And the fact that we can't get 9 people in an instance is one of the biggest annoying parts of this. Then on top of that, you throw in the shitty rewards, and again, you're right back to where this progress and your progression turns into regression. Now, I'm sure with enough time and patience, I can get 6 people together. I can have everyone try to get into the same instance solo. When we finally get 2 people in an area, we all join up on their party and we have one big room. That's possible. That's probable. But how long do you think that'll take to happen? I mean, I know on my friends list I have a married couple with KY and Rip, and we could probably have them split up in attempts to get in the same instance. And then when they do, we all join them, because, I mean, after all, they're in the same fucking house. I would assume the game would know these 2 people are relatively close in region and match them up in an instance. But essentially, this really sucks that you can't get enough people to at least attempt some of the further levels of Escalation Protocol. The raid layer itself also looks to be quite challenging, just from the mechanics alone, and I like that. But what I don't like, again, is the power creep to get to that point. Spire of the Stars recommends 370 power, and the boss himself is at 380. So getting to 370 is pretty much the only way you will have a chance of beating that sumbitch. And a reason I personally haven't done so yet. I haven't gotten there yet. I'll get there this week, but how will I manage to do it? By playing old raids? I mean, this is sort of a double-edged sword that Bungie's going to be playing with, especially when the game progresses. You know, on one hand, one of the biggest complaints that Destiny 1 had was the relevance of older raids once new DLC came out. Vault of Glass was fantastic, but once the Dark Below released, the gear never updated to the new light level, so all you did was play Crota's End as opposed to playing the Vault of Glass. Then when the House of Wolves came out, Crota's End and the Vault of Glass were made obsolete. Taken King comes out, same thing. It wasn't until the Age of Triumphs, the final update for Destiny 1, where Bungie went back and they made a 400 level of each raid to give us the most updated gear. So in Destiny 2, they learned from that, and they kept the older raids relevant. I can run normal Leviathan, Prestige Leviathan, and Argos to get some current level power gear, which is pretty cool. But here's the issue. Why did it become mandatory to do these again? I mean, just so that you can make it to the Spire of Stars? I mean, see, without the older raids being relevant, you would need other methods to grind, other content to get to a high power level, usually in the form of the content within the DLC, such as Escalation Protocol, your Heroic Strikes, maybe your new Nightfalls. But to get into the Spire of Stars, the weekly milestones will not be enough for like 3 weeks. The only way you're going to rapidly advance in power level is by running the old content again. And to that effect, this is a flaw. I don't mind running the older raids, and I actually like that they have up-to-date power gear. But the content of the DLC should be able to do that without the old raids. There should be incentive to run these again, but not the driving force of what needs to be done in order to get you to the new raid layer. Because put it this way, without the older raids, how many people will be stuck at 350 or lower at the end of the first week? Without the 3 older raids, do you think anyone would have surpassed 360? Hell no, not even close. Running normal Leviathan gives you 4 encounter drops, 1 potential challenge drop, 1 engram for the Castellan completion, and then 3 keys in the underbelly. That's 9 pieces of gear that will advance your power level, plus chances at exotics from the chest or even the encounter drops. Now, run Prestige Leviathan. You get 4 drops, 1 potential challenge drop, and another Castellan drop. That's another 6 drops. That's 15 encounter drops that you get. And by the way, don't just run Prestige and hope you get the double drops, because that means those double drops are going to fall at the same level. Do normal first, bump yourself up, then run Prestige again, and that makes certain that the drops will increase in power. Argos has 2 engrams, a chance for an exotic, and 2 raid drops. So that's another 4 guaranteed drops. When you combine all of that, you're looking at 20 pieces of potential rank up. Motherfucker, Colonel Sanders doesn't even offer a 20-piece bucket of chicken in most places anymore. And here's the sad shit. When you look at the percentage of players that have completed raid level activities, it is embarrassingly low. Embarrassingly low. So you have this Spire of the Stars, which is already going to have a very low percentage completion, but those low percentage completion players still have to go back and beat shit that they already beat. You have no choice but to run the old content again. Not new content, not Escalation Protocol, not Heroic Strikes with modifiers, old content. Relative content, which is a positive, but older content. Progression in Warmind is all about regression. It's all about taking a step back. To advance the game, you have to go backwards in time, playing older content to gather gear to move forward. You needed to beat the older raids. You needed to play the same strikes over and over and over again, not including the 2 story missions turned into strikes in that PlayStation exclusive that fucks over other platforms. And the newest content, Escalation Protocol and Spire of the Stars, is put so well out of reach of most players in week 1 because they want to slow people down. The logic being, people are going to play this game longer if they have more to grind for. Actually, the logic is, if people get frustrated that they can't reach content, they're just going to go play Fortnite and not give a fuck about Destiny again. Overall, Warmind is better than Curse of Osiris. There is no question about that. It adds content that vanilla Destiny 2 and Osiris didn't have, but it puts your advancement on an incline treadmill with the fucking conveyor belt going sideways. That's the best way I can describe this progression system right now. As I said at the start of the video, it's not worth spending $20 on, and only worth playing if you already bought the season pass. So if you have any ideas of playing this again, you have to see whether or not you have it or not. I don't recommend this to anyone to spend $20 on. It's just not worth it. Hence, when you see my friends list and you see how many people started the game and by the end of the week they're already like, you know what, fuck this shit, I don't want to play it. It's already frustrating players that they have to play this content and there is no progression in their ranking up. I played the shit out of this game, and all I got to was the mid to high 360s on all 3 of my characters. Can you imagine the people that don't run the amount of content that I run, didn't have the amount of time that I had to play? It would be incredibly frustrating. And I agree with every one of those players that say, you know what, this is so frustrating, there's really no reason for me to play it. Anyways, that does it for my Warmind DLC review. You guys knew I was going to tear Bungie an asshole in this one. So as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all that good shit. And I'll see you guys in the next video.